Nebraska Sandhills summer of 1879. The dust storm hit Wildflower like a fist from the heavens, turning the afternoon sky the color of old blood. Clara Vogel stumbled through the grit, her dress torn and smudged with soot, one hand shielding her eyes. Through the swirling haze she spotted two figures near the corral, her daughter Margaret swaying with fever, and the Lakota man who'd arrived 3 days ago, calling himself Thomas Black. His hand steadied Margaret's shoulder. His body shielded her from the wind. Clara's heart lurched, not with gratitude, but with terror. This was how it started. Men offered help, showed kindness, then took what they wanted. "Get away from my daughter," Clara snapped, jabbing a finger at his chest. Tahoma didn't flinch. He stood tall, broad-shouldered, with long, black hair tied back with rawhide. His dark eyes met hers without apology. "She has a fever. The laudanum you gave her slows her breathing. She needs water, willow bark, and shade." Along the street, rifle barrels appeared in windows. Deputy Pike stood in the marshal's office doorway, hand on his holster. Wildflower had 200 souls, and everyone knew what a Lakota man standing too close to a white woman could mean. The corral board swung loose in a violent gust, whipping around like a spear. Tahoma yanked Margaret back against his chest, pivoting to shield her. The edge caught his palm, opening a gash from thumb to wrist. Blood dripped into the dust. "Tahoma!" Pike's voice cut through the wind. He advanced, Colt drawn and cocked. "Step away from the women, now." Tahoma raised both hands, the wounded one leaving red droplets. "The girl needs—" "I don't care what she needs. You don't touch white women in this town." The water trough collapsed with a wet crack, spilling 200 gallons into the paddock. The cattle panicked, stampeding straight at Clara. Tahoma's arm locked around her waist, lifting her clear as the animals thundered past. Then he released her, stepping back, hands raised as Pike's revolver tracked him. Clara's knees buckled. Tahoma had just saved her life, and he'd claimed nothing for it. Margaret coughed wet and rattling. Her lips had gone pale. Clara looked at Tahoma's blood dripping into dust, at his steady eyes, at the calm no innocent man should possess under a cocked gun. For the first time since her husband died in shame, Clara Vogel didn't know what to believe. Tahoma had arrived on a Tuesday, leading 2 gaunt horses and a skeletal mule. He'd been running 3 weeks, not in panic, but methodically like hunted prey that knows pursuit will be patient. Behind him lay the Lakota reservation, where army rations arrived 4 months late or not at all. Tahoma had stolen back what was owed 6 horses, 4 crates of hardtack, 2 barrels of salt pork, and distributed them to starving families. The U.S. Army called him a thief and wanted him in irons, or dead. He was 30, though the lines around his eyes made him look older. He'd learned blacksmithing at 16 at Fort Kearney, working for wages, when a Lakota man could still earn them by keeping silent. His hands bore burn scars, calluses thick as boot leather, crooked knuckles from breaks that healed wrong. His portable forge included bellows, horseshoes, hammers, tongs, and 3 jars of dried herbs, yarrow for bleeding willow bark, for fever, bearberry for water. His grandmother had taught him before smallpox took her. He carried no rifle, only a knife and rawhide rope. Weapons drew attention. Tools invited work. By noon, he'd hung a shingle shoeing repairs metalwork. Fair rates. His first visitor was a child. Margaret Vogel appeared after midday, skinny in a faded blue dress, left arm withered and bent right hand, gripping a broken tin pail. Her gray eyes studied him with curiosity, not fear. "Mama says you're the blacksmith. Can you fix this?" Tahoma examined the snapped handle. "Yes. Leave it. Come back before supper." Margaret didn't leave. She watched him fire the forge heat copper test temperature with a wetted finger that hissed. "Why doesn't your arm work?" Tahoma asked neutral. Margaret shrugged. Born that way. Doctor said it was the cord. Hurts sometimes. Mama gives me medicine for sleeping. Laudanum? His jaw tightened. Tastes like bitter dirt. Tahoma retrieved willow bark, added water, crushed it with a river stone. This helps pain without making you sleep wrong. Your breathing stays clear. He showed her how to grind it one-handed, using her bent elbow to brace the bowl. Margaret tried awkward at first, then managed a full grinding motion. Her smile was brief, but genuine. "Don't tell your mother it's from me," Tahoma said. "Tell her you bought it from the mercantile." "What?" "Because she'll throw it away if she knows." Margaret nodded. Mama's scared of everything. Most people are when they've lost someone. "Did you lose someone?" Shadow passed through his eyes. "Yes." Margaret picked up her repaired pail and paused at the door. "I'm Margaret." "Tahoma. It means thunder." "My mama's Clara. It means bright." "But she's not bright anymore. She's just worried." When Clara found Margaret in the livery that afternoon, she erupted. "What are you doing here?" Clara gripped Margaret's shoulder, pulling her away. "I told you to stay in the house. He fixed my pail and taught me." "I don't care." Clara's eyes snapped to Tahoma. "You stay away from my daughter. Understand?" "I understand. If I see you talking to her again, I'll have Deputy Pike run you out of town." Clara fished a nickel from her apron and slapped it on the workbench. Then she left, dragging Margaret behind her. Tahoma stared at the nickel. He set it aside, separate from his other coins. Clara Vogel's anger wasn't about the pail or medicine. It was about fear. And fear was the most dangerous currency on the frontier. Over the following days, Wildflower's residents revealed themselves. Abel Crow was 50, with a belly straining his vest and soft hands from counting money. He owned the mercantile grain store and held the town well leased through backroom deals. During the drought, he'd locked the well rationing water at $2 per 50 gallons, impossible for most farmers. His store sold laudanum patent medicines and whiskey at criminal markups. He smiled easily. His eyes held a snake's warmth. Eli Brandt was 45, a farmer with 3 sons, and land turned to dust. He hired Tahoma first, bringing a mule needing a new shoe, paying in flour. "Town's got its eye on you," Eli said. "You got papers, travel permit?" "No." "Then you're breaking territorial law just being here. If you need work, come to my place. I can feed you and keep you out of sight." Miss June Avery taught school 35, and unmarried with auburn hair and Tennessee iron in her spine. She'd fled west after breaking an engagement when her fiancé's family discovered she'd been teaching freed slaves to read. On Tahoma's 4th day, she pressed a note into his hand. 3 children coughing blood. Well, water tastes wrong. "Can you help?" That night, Tahoma drew water and examined it. Cloudy with faint green tinge. Minerals and something organic rotting. He boiled water, treated it with bearberry, left it on the schoolhouse steps before dawn with instructions. The next afternoon, Miss June tipped her hat from across the street. Dr. Alistair Whitehill was 55, exhausted with thinning gray hair. He'd trained in Philadelphia, served as Union Army surgeon, then drifted west when his wife died. When he saw Tahoma buying borax, he approached. "You practice frontier medicine?" "I know some remedies. Tree and root. They work for anyone. If you're willing to share knowledge, I'm willing to listen. I've got patients I can't help." That evening, Whitehill brought his kit. Tahoma showed him willow bark tincture, yarrow poultice, bearberry tea. Whitehill took notes, asked precise questions, left with new respect. The chemistry between Clara and Tahoma began with necessity, unwanted and undeniable. Margaret's fever returned on Saturday night, worse than before. Clara prepared laudanum automatically, but Margaret turned away. It makes me feel wrong. Can't I try the willow medicine? Clara's blood froze. What willow medicine? The kind the blacksmith showed me. Clara stormed to the livery in her nightgown. Tahoma was sharpening his knife. You gave my daughter medicine without my permission. I showed her how to make it. She chose to use it. She's 14. She doesn't get to choose. Then make better decisions. Steel beneath his calm. The laudanum you're giving her is cut with alcohol. Doses are inconsistent. If you keep using it, she'll stop waking up one night. Clara slapped him. The sound cracked like a gunshot. Tahoma's head snapped sideways, but he didn't react otherwise. Just turned back and met her eyes. You don't know anything, Clara whispered. I know what dying looks like. And your daughter is halfway there. How do you know the laudanum is bad? I've seen it before, on the reservation. Traders water down medicine to stretch profit. Check the bottle. If the label's scraped or cork doesn't fit tight, it's been tampered with. Clara ran back. The bottle's label was scraped glue lifting, cork loose. Liquid clearer than it should be, sharp alcohol smell beneath medicinal bitterness. She poured it into the slop bucket, walked back, and said 6 words. Teach me how to make it. Tahoma nodded. He showed her the same process he'd taught Margaret. Their hands brushed once. Clara jerked back, but Tahoma continued speaking. When the medicine was prepared, Clara took it without thanks. At the door, she stopped. If this hurts her, it won't, asked Dr. Whitehill. Clara left, but the next morning she asked Whitehill and he confirmed every word. And Clara didn't tell Tahoma to stay away from Margaret again. It was the first crack in the wall between them. Trouble arrived Tuesday on horseback. Lieutenant Josiah Sutter leading 6th 7th Cavalry troopers. Sutter was 40 with a hatchet jaw and cold eyes. He dismounted at the marshal's office. Deputy Pike stood startled. Lieutenant Sutter wasn't expecting. Sutter slapped a paper on the desk. Warrant from the U.S. District Court for Nebraska for Thomas Black, alias unknown. Lakota male 30 years old wanted for theft of U.S. Army property. Last seen heading west from Fort Robinson. What did he steal? 6 cavalry horses, 4 crates of hardtack, 2 barrels of salt pork. 1 horse was mine. The raid that killed my brother-in-law was triggered by this bastard's chaos. You think he's here? I know he is. Blacksmith at the old livery. Goes by Thomas Black. There's laws about wrongful arrest. You're going to deputize me and my men. We'll search, seize stolen property, bring him in. If he resists, military jurisdiction handles it. Sutter leaned over the desk. Now, deputy, or I'll report you obstructed a federal warrant. Pike reached for his stamp. By sunset, Sutter's camp was erected at town's edge. Guards posted at well in livery. The army wasn't leaving without their man. Clara heard from her tenant. If the army took Tahoma, they'd hang him. And Margaret had been improving on willow bark, her breathing clearer, fevers less frequent. That evening, Clara walked to the livery. There's a cavalry lieutenant in town. He has a warrant for you. I know. You need to leave? Tonight. Tahoma shook his head. If I run, they'll hunt harder. If I stay, there's a chance to talk my way out. You can't talk your way out of a noose. Besides, I have work to finish. People rely on the medicine. If I leave, who makes it? That's not your responsibility. Isn't it? He met her eyes. Your daughter is doing better. Miss June's student stopped coughing blood. They're alive because someone chose to help. If I run, I'm saying their lives don't matter as much as mine. Footsteps outside. The door swung open. Sutter stood framed by lantern light, flanked by armed troopers. "Mrs. Vogel, step outside. This doesn't concern you. This is my town. Everything concerns me. Harboring a fugitive is federal crime. You'll lose your property and face charges." Sutter turned to Tahoma. "Thomas Black, you're under arrest. Hands on your head." "What property?" 6 horses, 4 crates of hardtack, 2 barrels of salt pork." "I didn't steal them. I recovered them." Tahoma's voice was calm. The rations were marked for Fort Robinson Reservation families. They never arrived. "I found them in a civilian storehouse and took them where they belonged." "You have proof. Do you have proof I'm wrong?" Sutter stepped forward, hand on his sidearm. "I have a warrant. Hands up or I shoot." Clara's heart hammered. She stepped between them. "Wait. If you arrest him who treats the sick, half this town is sick from bad water. If Tahoma goes, people die. Not my concern. It should be. Restrain him." Soldiers moved forward. Tahoma raised his hands, but before they could bind him, Dr. Whitehill stepped in with a newspaper. "Lieutenant, I'd like a word." "Doctor, this is military. If you arrest him, I'm filing formal complaint with the state governor citing medical necessity. That'll tie up your warrant for weeks, or give me 5 minutes." Sutter glared, but nodded to his troopers. "Wait outside." Whitehill unrolled the paper. Omaha Herald, 2 weeks old. Story about missing Army rations. Government inspector found discrepancies in deliveries to 3 reservations, including Fort Robinson. The rations were diverted and sold to civilian contractors. Sutter's expression flickered. "If Tahoma stole rations that were already stolen, that complicates your warrant. And if the investigation confirms fraud, you'll have arrested the wrong man." Silence stretched taut. Finally, Sutter spoke. "I'm not dropping the warrant, but I'll give you 48 hours. If he runs, I hunt him down. If he stays, we revisit when the investigation concludes." "Understood." "Understood." Sutter turned to Tahoma. "You're confined to the livery. My men are watching. 1 step outside, you're done." He strode out. Clara exhaled shakily. Tahoma's wrists were still bound. Clara untied the knots with clumsy fingers. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." Clara met his eyes. For the first time, she didn't see a stranger or a threat. She saw a man who'd chosen to stay when running was safer, because leaving meant people would suffer. And she realized she'd been wrong about him from the start. 2 days later, Abel Crow announced the town needed urgent repairs and would be closed. Water would be sold by barrel at $2 per 50 gallons. For families like Eli's, the price was impossible. For Clara, it was extortion. For Margaret, whose fevers required clean water for medicine, it was a death sentence. Clara confronted Crow. "You can't close the well. People will die." Crow smiled. "The pump is failing. Water quality has degraded. I'm ensuring safe distribution. At $2 a barrel. Purification has costs. If you can't afford it, reconsider your expenses." That night, Clara found Tahoma sorting herbs. "Margaret needs water for medicine. Crow's price is impossible. Is there another source?" "There's Coyote Seep 10 miles northeast, hidden in a dry arroyo. Water's clean if filtered right." Can you take us? The cavalry's watching. If I leave, they'll shoot." "Then we go before dawn. They can't watch what they can't see." Tahoma studied her, weighing risk against necessity. "We leave at 4. Bring Margaret 2 canteens and a rifle. The arroyo has coyotes, maybe worse. I have a rifle. Do you know how to use it?" "I'll learn fast." They left under black sky stars, fading as the horizon paled. Tahoma led his dun mare Clara rode with Margaret bundled behind her. The girl's fever had spiked again. The ride northeast took them across scrubland dotted with sagebrush. Behind them, a thin dust line rose. Clara saw it. Someone's following. I know. Don't look again. Tahoma's voice was flat. Probably Pike, maybe Crow's men. They'll wait until we reach the seep. Why? They want to know where it is. If we lead them, Crow can claim it and charge for access. They reached the arroyo as sun broke over hills. 15 feet deep, twice as wide walls carved by ancient floods. At the bottom, water seeped from rock into a shallow basin. Tahoma examined the water, scooped a palmful, tasted, nodded. It's good. Filter and boil, but it's clean. He prepared medicine quickly. Clara helped Margaret down. The girl slumped against rock, breathing shallow. Tahoma held the cup to Margaret's lips. She drank in small sips. Clara watched his steady hands. There was something almost reverent in how he cared for Margaret. It was then Clara realized she didn't just trust him with her daughter's life. She trusted him, period. Hoofbeats echoed down the arroyo. Deputy Pike appeared flanked by 2 ranch hands. Well, well. Thomas Black leaving town without permission. Violation of Lieutenant Sutter's order. Tahoma stood positioning himself between Pike and Margaret. The girl needed water. Crow's price was too high. Not my concern. You're under arrest. For keeping a child alive. Pike grinned. For disobeying confinement and trespassing. This arroyo's owned by Abel Crow. He filed a claim last month. Clara's blood went cold. Crow had known all along. The girl needs medicine, Clara said. We'll leave as soon. You'll leave now, and your Lakota friend's coming with me. Pike started down, hand on his revolver. Tahoma's eyes locked on Pike. Clara saw calculations, running angles, distances, outcomes. Don't, she whispered. Tahoma reached for his knife, not to draw it, but to unbuckle the sheath and set it down. Pike relaxed. Smart choice. As the deputy stepped closer, Tahoma moved. Fast. He grabbed rawhide rope from his saddle and whipped it across Pike's wrist, knocking the revolver free. The gun clattered. The ranch hands drew weapons, but Tahoma swung horseshoe tongs, forcing them back. Clara grabbed a broken fence slat and swung hard at Pike's legs. He went down cursing. She swung again, catching his shoulder. Leave, Clara snarled, or I'll hit you again. One ranch hand raised his rifle. Tahoma pressed the tongs to his throat. Drop it. The man let the rifle fall. Pike struggled up. You're both dead. Crow's gonna hang you. Then he'll have to catch us first. Tahoma grabbed his knife and bag. Clara, get Margaret on the horse, now. They rode hard for 20 minutes, dust billowing behind them. No shots followed. They slowed near juniper trees. Tahoma checked Margaret's pulse. Her fever's broken. The medicine's working. She needs rest, but she'll be all right. Clara's relief was dizzying. She sagged. Tahoma caught her arm. Breathe. You're both safe. For how long, Pike will tell Crow. Crow will tell Sutter. We bought time. That's all we can ask. Clara knelt by Margaret, brushing damp hair from her forehead. The girl's skin was cooler, breathing even. Tahoma crouched nearby. You shouldn't have done that. Hit Pike. He'll come after you. He was already coming. At least now he knows I won't go quietly. Clara looked at Tahoma. Thank you for not killing him. I don't kill unless I have to. Tahoma's gaze was steady. But Clara, we just made enemies of the law army and richest man in town. This won't end well. I know. Clara tightened her grip on Margaret's hand. But my daughter's still breathing. That's all that matters. They sat in silence. Then Tahoma spoke softer. There's something you should know about why I came here. I thought you were running from the army. I am. But not the only reason. He stared at the horizon. My grandmother, who taught me the remedies, died on the reservation 2 winters ago. Smallpox. The army doctor wouldn't treat her because she was Lakota. Said his supplies were for priority cases. She died alone in pain, and I couldn't help her. Clara's throat constricted. I swore I'd never let that happen again, that I'd learn enough medicine to help anyone who needed it, no matter who they were. He looked at her. That's why I can't leave. If I run, I'm breaking that promise. I'm saying some lives matter more than others, and I can't do that. Clara understood. Tahoma wasn't staying because he was reckless. He was staying because leaving would betray everything he believed. Then we'll find another way, Clara said. We'll fight. Together. Tahoma's expression softened. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Clara took his hand. You saved my daughter's life. Twice. I'm not letting you face this alone. Tahoma stared at their joined hands. Then he met her gaze, and something passed between them, understanding promise, recognition. All right, he said quietly. Together. That night, Tahoma taught Clara to hold a rifle. He stood behind her, adjusting her stance, feet, shoulder-width knees, bent stock firm against shoulder. Breathe out when you pull the trigger. Don't anticipate. Let it surprise you. Clara nodded, acutely aware of his presence. Warmth of his chest near her back, steadiness of his hands guiding hers. It was practical, necessary, but it felt like something more. She pulled the trigger. The can flew off the post. Clara lowered the gun, breathing hard. Tahoma watched with an expression she couldn't read. Good. You'll need that skill if things get worse. Things are already worse. They're about to get worse still. Clara walked back to the boarding house, where Margaret slept soundly for the first time in days. That night, Clara dreamed of dust storms and drowning of a hand reaching through chaos to pull her free. She woke with Tahoma's name on her lips. The days that followed were slow siege. Sutter didn't arrest Tahoma yet, but guards remained at town's ends checking every rider. Crow tightened his grip. The well stayed locked. Families traded livestock, tools, even furniture for water. Tahoma converted the livery's back corner into a clinic, hanging herbs from rafters, organizing jars, sketching dosage charts. Whitehill provided scales and bandages. Miss June brought mothers with sick children. Eli's son arrived with an infected gash. Tahoma treated everyone, asking payment only of what they could afford. He taught Clara to boil water, recognize infection wrap bandages properly. She learned fast. They fell into rhythm, working side by side. Sometimes they spoke short exchanges about technique. More often they worked in silence, movements synchronized. Clara noticed small things, how his jaw tightened when concentrating the scar on his forearm and the gentleness with which he handled fragile things. And she noticed how he looked at her, not with hunger or ownership, but with something quieter. Respect. Recognition. Margaret recovered enough to help sorting herbs one-handed, while her withered arm braced containers. She chattered to Tahoma about books, questions about medicine and stars. Tahoma answered patiently. Clara watched them and felt something inside shift, a stubborn knot of fear loosening, letting in a sliver of light. But violence was coming. Crow was too greedy to let the clinic undercut his laudanum sales. Sutter was too proud to let the warrant lapse. And Pike had a bruised ego that wouldn't heal without blood. The first confrontation came Thursday afternoon at the old railroad bridge. Tahoma had ridden to Eli's farm to treat Noah's infected wire cut. Eli walked him to his horse afterward. Don't ride back through town. Sutter's men know you're here. Take the old railroad bridge. It's faster and cavalry doesn't patrol that far. Tahoma rode toward the bridge, rusted iron spanning a 20-foot gulch. He dismounted, leading his horse across. Metal planks creaked underfoot. Halfway across, he heard hoofbeats. Lieutenant Sutter and 3 troopers approached, horses at deliberate walk. Sutter's hand rested on his saber pommel. It was a cavalry officer's habit to wear the saber on patrol. Not every trooper carried one. Thomas Black, or should I say Tahoma, we need to talk. Tahoma kept his hand on the reins. I was treating a sick boy, not a crime. Disobeying confinement is. Assaulting a deputy is. Sutter dismounted, boots ringing on metal. Give me the names of the other raiders who helped you steal those supplies, and I'll reduce charges. There were no other raiders. I acted alone. I don't believe you. That's not my problem. Sutter's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, troopers spreading to block retreat. Give me those names, or you hang. Your choice. I didn't steal anything. I returned government property to its intended recipients. If you want to hang someone, hang the people who diverted the rations. Bold words for a man with nowhere to run. Sutter drew his saber. Last chance. Tahoma didn't answer. Sutter nodded. 2 troopers grabbed Tahoma's arms, forcing him to his knees. The third looped rope around his neck, tying it to a support beam. Then they hauled him upright and dragged him to the edge. I'll ask one more time. One more. Names. Tahoma said nothing. Sutter raised his boot and shoved. The rope snapped taut, jerking Tahoma to a stop 3 feet below the edge. The noose bit into his throat, cutting off air. Vision blurred red. His hands clawed at the rope. The knot was tight, professional. Maybe 30 seconds before blackout. The world narrowed, burn of rope, crush of windpipe, drumming blood in ears. Fingers scrabbled uselessly. Sky wheeled impossibly blue. He thought of his grandmother's face, Margaret's smile, Clara's eyes when she'd said together. 20 seconds. Lungs screamed. Black spots bloomed. 15 seconds. Hands fell away, nerveless. Above, Sutter leaned over. Still nothing. Tahoma tried to speak. Only a choked rasp came. Then a new voice, Clara's voice, sharp and furious. Cut him down. Now. Clara stood on the far side of the bridge, Springfield rifle raised, aimed at Sutter's chest. Behind her, Eli Brandt and his 3 sons, all armed. Miss June Avery holding a shotgun. Sutter straightened slowly. Mrs. Vogel, this is military business. Lower your weapon. Cut him down, or I'll shoot you myself. Clara's finger tightened on the trigger. And Miss June here will record every detail for territorial court, including the part where you executed an unarmed man without trial. Miss June held up a notebook. I'm very thorough, Lieutenant. Names, dates, witnesses. Sutter's jaw worked. He glanced at his troopers, then at the rifles pointed at him. Finally, he gestured. Cut him loose. A soldier sawed through the rope. Tahoma dropped into the gulch, landing hard. Impact drove air from his lungs. Pain exploded through shoulder and ribs. But he could breathe. Clara scrambled down, Eli behind her. Together they hauled Tahoma upright. His throat was raw, each inhale agony. Sutter watched from above. Then he sheathed his saber and mounted. This isn't over, Mrs. Vogel. You just made an enemy of the United States Army. I already had one. At least now it's mutual. The cavalry rode off. Tahoma sagged against Clara, and she braced to hold him. His breath was hot against her neck, pulse racing under her palm. You came, he rasped. Of course I came. You think I'd let them hang you after everything? You shouldn't have risked it. Don't tell me what I should or shouldn't do. Clara tightened her grip. For a moment they just stood breathing together, alive together. Her hand moved to his face, fingertips brushing the livid bruise on his jaw. You're not doing this alone anymore. Understand? Tahoma's eyes locked on hers, something raw flickering in their depths. Clara. Eli cleared his throat. We should move. They helped Tahoma onto his horse and rode back in tight formation. By twilight, they reached Wildflower. Clara helped him into the livery. He collapsed onto a hay bale. Clara knelt checking rope burns with gentle fingers. I need to clean these. Later, Tahoma caught her wrist grip weak but insistent. They'll come after you now. Crow, Pike, Sutter, you put a target on yourself. Then we face it together. That's what you said. Together. Tahoma's thumb brushed her knuckles. I'm not worth this. The risk. That's not your decision. Clara leaned closer. You saved my daughter. You've saved half this town, and I'll be damned if I let them kill you for it. Neither spoke. The space between them was charged electric, filled with unspoken things. Then Tahoma's hand slid from her wrist to her palm, fingers interlacing. Thank you, he whispered. Clara nodded, unable to trust her voice. She stayed kneeling beside him, holding his hand, until his breathing steadied and pain eased from his eyes. She knew with certainty, both terrifying and steadying, that she would do it again. Would risk everything again. Would stand between him and death as many times as it took. Because somewhere between fear and trust, survival and sacrifice, she'd stopped seeing him as the dangerous stranger and started seeing him as hers. A week later, in dead of night, Eli came to the livery with a desperate plan. Crow was hoarding grain in a warehouse near town's edge, flour and cornmeal that should have gone to the reservation. If they could seize it, redistribute it, they might buy goodwill and evidence to turn the town against Crow. That's theft, Tahoma said. So is what Crow's doing. At least our theft feeds people. It's also suicide. Crow's warehouse has guards, locks, traps. Clara, listening from shadows, spoke. If we're going to hang anyway, we might as well hang for something that matters. Tahoma's mouth quirked. All right. But we do this smart. No guns unless necessary. If it goes wrong, we scatter. They planned for 2 days, scouting noting guard rotations. On raid night, they approached from the blind side. Tahoma picked the padlock with horseshoe nails. His hands shook from residual hanging damage, but fingers were deft. The lock gave with a soft snick. Inside, sacks of flour, cornmeal, beans, stacked floor to ceiling, enough to feed reservation and town for months. This is twice what the county's supposed to receive in a year, Eli whispered. They loaded sacks onto a hidden wagon. As they hauled the last load, lantern light flickered. Voices shouted. Someone's in there. Go, I'll hold them. Tahoma started. Like hell. Clara grabbed a sack and threw it on the wagon. We all go, or none of us do. They piled in. Eli snapped reins. Horses bolted as guards reached the door, shotguns booming. Buckshot peppered the wagon. One horse screamed and stumbled. The wagon lurched, but Eli kept control. Behind them, hoofbeats thundered. The chase stretched 2 miles. Tahoma crouched in back, shielding sacks as bullets whined past Clara's ear. Then the wagon hit a gully. The axle snapped. The vehicle flipped, spilling sacks and bodies. Clara rolled clear, gasping. Tahoma was pinned beneath a sack. She scrambled to help, shoving it aside. Tahoma sat up, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. He grabbed her hand. Run. Not without you. Clara. I said no. They stumbled into darkness while Eli and Sons scattered, drawing pursuit away. The hoofbeats faded. Then a figure stepped from shadows, pike revolver leveled at Tahoma's chest. End of the line. Clara's hand moved to the derringer in her apron. But Tahoma stepped in front of her, blocking Pike's line. Let her go. She's not part of this. Oh, she's very much part of this. Pike grinned. Crow's been waiting for an excuse to take Vogelhaus. What do you want? I want you in chains, and her to watch when we hang you. Pike thumbed the hammer. Drop to your knees. Tahoma didn't move. Clara felt tension in his body, coiled readiness. Pike's finger tightened. A shot rang out. Pike staggered, clutching his shoulder revolver, falling. Behind him, Miss June lowered her smoking rifle. That was a warning. The next goes through your skull. Pike stumbled backward, then ran. Miss June approached. Are you two all right? We are now, Clara said. Thank you. Thank me by getting out of here. There's a line shack 5 miles north. Eli's boys will meet you with fresh horses. Go. They went stumbling hand in hand through darkness until pursuit faded. By dawn, they reached the line shack, decrepit one-room structure with leaking roof. Tahoma collapsed against the wall. Clara sank beside him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Clara started laughing, raw, half hysterical. We just stole from Crow and escaped Pike and got saved by a schoolteacher. This is insane. Completely. Tahoma laughed, too rusty sound that turned into a cough and then a wince as he clutched his ribs. Clara's sobered hand moving to his side. You're hurt. Just bruised. But he didn't pull away when she lifted his shirt. Bruises darkened his ribs and abdomen, but nothing felt broken. You're lucky. I'm with you. That's all the luck I need. Clara's hand stilled. She looked up and found him watching with an expression so open it stole her breath. Tahoma. I know we shouldn't. I know it's dangerous and impossible. And I don't care. Clara's voice was fierce. You're the first person who's seen me, not the widow, not the immigrant, just me. And I... She couldn't finish. But Tahoma's hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Clara, if we do this, keep going down this road, there's no going back. They'll never let us be. I know. But I'd rather fight beside you than be safe without you. Tahoma's breath hitched. They stayed like that, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. Then Eli's son appeared with fresh horses, and the spell broke. But as they mounted and rode toward Wildflower, Clara's hand found Tahoma's, and neither let go. Margaret found the ledger Sunday morning by accident. She'd been searching for rags. Her mother kept a trunk of old linens under kitchen floorboards, and when she pried up the loose plank, she discovered something else. A leather-bound ledger, edges worn, pages yellowed. Margaret hesitated. But curiosity won. She opened it. Military supply delivery records written in neat script. Each entry listed date, quantity, destination, signature. The same signature on every page, Herman Vogel, Surgeon, U.S. Army. Her father's handwriting. Margaret scanned entries. Hardtack to Fort Robinson marked, delivered in full. Salt pork to Lakota Reservation marked, delivered in full. Flour beans blankets all marked, delivered, all signed by her father. But something felt wrong. Dates clustered strangely, multiple deliveries, same day to distant locations. Quantities huge, more than a single wagon could carry. Some signatures rushed, ink smudged. Margaret's hands shook. She remembered fragments, her father arguing with someone, her mother crying, soldiers taking him away. She'd been too young to understand then, but she understood now. She carried the ledger to the livery where Tahoma and Whitehill discussed a patient. Her mother was there too, grinding willow bark. Tahoma, Margaret said breathlessly. I found this. I think it has something to do with the rations. Tahoma took the ledger, flipping pages. Whitehill leaned over. Clara approached, puzzled. What is it? Tahoma looked up. Government receipts. Proof of delivery for Army supplies. My father signed them, Margaret said, but the supplies never arrived. Tahoma's voice was flat but not unkind. I checked every entry against reservation records. The rations marked for Fort Robinson were sold to Abel Crow. The blankets for the reservation ended up in Crow's mercantile. Your father falsified these because Crow paid him to cover up the theft. Margaret's face went white. No, my father wouldn't. He did. Whitehill said gently. Margaret, your father was desperate. He had debts, a sick wife, a child. Crow probably paid him more for one signature than the army paid in a month. It doesn't make it right, but it makes it human. Did you know? Margaret looked at Tahoma, eyes pleading. When you came here, did you know? No. I knew the rations were stolen, not who signed the papers. His voice softened. I'm sorry, Margaret. Clara crossed in 3 strides and snatched the ledger. Her eyes scanned Page's expression, crumbling shock, disbelief, dawning horror. He told me it was a mistake, Clara whispered. The court-martial. He said the charges were false. I believed him. I defended him. He lied, Tahoma said without judgment. But this ledger is also proof that Crow's the real thief. If we take it to territorial court, Crow goes to prison. The town gets its water back. The reservation gets justice. Clara looked up, eyes wet. And my husband's name gets dragged through mud. Again. Your husband's dead, Whitehill said bluntly. The living matter more. Clara's hands clenched the ledger. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Margaret watched her mother's face, loyalty to the dead versus justice for the living. Finally, Clara closed the book and met Tahoma's gaze. If I give this to you, Crow will come after Margaret. He'll say we forged it, destroy it, or... A knock on the door. They froze. The knock came again, harder. Tahoma opened it. Deputy Pike stood outside, flanked by Crow's hired men. Pike's arm was in a sling from Miss June's bullet. His smile was ugly. Mrs. Vogel, Mr. Crow would like a word. About your daughter. Clara's blood turned to ice. Where is she? Pike gestured to the empty space beside Clara. Oh, she's right there. But for how long? He leaned against the doorframe. Mr. Crow knows you have something of his, a certain ledger. He'd very much like it back. We don't have. Don't insult my intelligence. We saw the girl carrying it this morning. His gaze shifted to Margaret, something predatory flickering. Pretty thing. Be a shame if something happened. Accidents happen all the time. Falls, fires, disappearances. Tahoma stepped forward, body angling between Pike and Margaret. Touch her and I'll kill you. Brave words from a man with a noose waiting. Pike straightened. Here's how this works. Bring the ledger to the old mine outside town by sundown tonight. Come alone, just Mrs. Vogel. If you do, we'll forget this happened. If you don't... He shrugged. Well, I'm sure you can imagine. The mine's unstable. Whitehill interjected. It could collapse any time. Then Mrs. Vogel better not dawdle. Sundown. Don't be late. Pike left. The livery fell into suffocating silence. Clara's breath came in short gasps. He's going to kill me. Even if I bring the ledger, he can't let me walk away. Then we don't play by his rules, Tahoma said steadily. We set our own trap. How? We give him what he wants, but we make sure the whole town sees us do it. We bring witnesses, people he can't intimidate or kill. Eli and his sons, Miss June with her notebook, Whitehill as medical witness, and someone ready to ride to county seat with a ledger copy if things go wrong. He said come alone. He also said sundown. We arrive early before his men are positioned. We force him to react instead of setting terms. Tahoma's hand found Clara's. It's not perfect, but it's better than walking into an execution. Margaret spoke up. Do it, Mama. If we don't stop him, he'll keep hurting people. And Papa would want us to make this right. Clara's eyes filled. She pulled Margaret into a fierce embrace, then nodded to Tahoma. All right, we do it your way. Together, Tahoma said. Together. Hollow Mine sat in hills west of Wildflower, dark mouth and hillside, shored with rotting timbers. Perfect trap. But Tahoma, Clara, Eli, Whitehill. Miss June and Margaret arrived an hour before sundown, riding openly up the main trail. Let Crow see them coming. 2 guards stood at the entrance. When they saw the group, one ran inside. Tahoma dismounted first, helping Clara and Margaret down. Eli and Sons fanned out, rifles ready, but not raised. Miss June produced notebook. Whitehill adjusted his bag. This is madness, Clara murmured. Probably, but it's our madness. Abel Crow emerged, flanked by Pike and 4 hired guns. Crow's face was red with fury. What the hell is this? I said come alone. You said a lot of things, most of them lies. So I brought witnesses. Witnesses to what, a business transaction? No. Clara pulled the ledger from her satchel. This is a record of every ration shipment you stole over 5 years. Signed by my husband, yes, but you paid him to do it. You diverted government supplies and sold them for profit while children starved. That's slander. You have no proof. We have this ledger. Miss June interjected, pencil flying. And I'm documenting every word for submission to the state governor, along with statements from 3 dozen townspeople extorted by your water monopoly. Crow's face went purple. Give me that ledger, or so help me. Or what? Tahoma stepped forward. You'll kill us all in front of witnesses. Shoot a woman, child doctor, and school teacher. Go ahead. But make sure you kill everyone, because if even one survives, you'll hang. Crow's hand twitched toward his holster. Pike grabbed his arm. Boss, there's too many. Shut up. Crow shook him off, eyes wild. You think I'm going to let some German widow and Lakota savage destroy everything I've built? I own this town, I own the water, the supplies, the law. You don't own us, Clara said quietly. Crow's composure shattered. He lunged for the ledger, but Tahoma intercepted, shoving him back. Hired guns raised rifles. The world balanced on a knife's edge. Then a voice rang from the hillside, Federal Marshal, drop your weapons. Everyone froze. A man in long coat stood on the ridge, Marshal's star gleaming. Behind him, 3 more armed men. The Marshal descended. Abel Crow, you're under arrest for theft of federal property, bribery, and conspiracy to defraud the U.S. Army. Deputy Pike, you're under arrest as accomplice. He glanced at the hired guns. Drop your weapons or join them in irons. Guns clattered. Crow stared, mouth working. This is how did you? Anonymous tip reached the state governor last week. Detailed letter about missing rations and a suspicious ledger. We've been investigating since. He turned to Tahoma. Thomas Black. The warrant for your arrest has been rescinded. You were recovering stolen property, not stealing it. The Army investigation confirmed everything. Tahoma exhaled slowly. I'm free. You're free. The Marshal turned to Clara. Mrs. Vogel, I'll need that ledger as evidence. Clara handed it over, trembling. What about my husband? His name is in there. Will be noted in the official record. But the real villain is Crow. Your husband made mistakes, but he's beyond justice now. You're not responsible for his sins. Clara's knees buckled. Tahoma caught her arm around her waist. She leaned into him. Margaret ran forward, wrapping her good arm around her mother. We did it, Mama. We did. Clara whispered, tears streaming. As the Marshal led Crow and Pike away in chains, the crowd erupted, laughing, crying, embracing. Miss June closed her notebook with a snap. This is going to make one hell of a story. Whitehill clapped Tahoma's shoulder. You've got a town full of patients waiting, son. Tahoma nodded, but his eyes were on Clara. She met his gaze, and the world fell away. Together? The aftermath unfolded quickly. Crow's assets were seized. The well was unlocked, water flowed freely for the first time in months. Mothers wept, children drank, farmers filled barrels. Lieutenant Sutter stopped at the livery before departing. I was wrong. I let pride and anger cloud judgment. You're not a thief. You're what I should have been, someone who did the right thing when it mattered. Tahoma accepted the apology. Your brother-in-law, I'm sorry. So am I. Sutter extended his hand. Tahoma shook it. If you ever need anything, send word. You've got a friend in the 7th Cavalry. Eli and Sons helped distribute recovered grain. Miss June sent accounts to newspapers across the territory. Whitehill treated the sick with renewed vigor. And Clara stood in the livery at dusk, watching Tahoma work. Firelight painted his face gold in shadow. He looked up and smiled. Come here. Clara approached, heart racing. Tahoma set down his hammer. I have to testify at Crow's trial. It'll take weeks, maybe months. And after I need to go back to the reservation for a while. There are people who need help, and I've been running too long. He paused. But if you'll have me, if you'll have us, I'd like to come back. To build a real clinic, one that serves everyone. Clara's breath caught. You'd come back. If the town agrees. If you want me to. Clara thought about the past weeks, the fear, the fights, the moments when Tahoma's presence was the only thing keeping her from breaking. The way he'd taught Margaret with patience. The way he'd risked everything to help people who'd given him nothing but suspicion. The way her hand fit in his. I want you to. I was wrong about you. About everything. I thought protecting Margaret meant keeping everyone out. But you taught me that protection can look like trust. Like partnership. Tahoma's hand covered hers. I don't have much to offer. No land, no money. Just a forge and some herbs, and the promise that I'll stand with you no matter what comes. That's enough. That's more than enough. They stood together as the fire crackled, and for the first time in years, Clara felt something other than fear. She felt hope. Margaret woke the next morning with clear eyes, steady breathing. She sat at the kitchen table teasing Tahoma about the crooked scar on his palm from that first day. You're a terrible seamstress. I'm a blacksmith, not a tailor. Margaret laughed. Tahoma showed her how to fashion a sling using her elbow strength. She practiced until she got it right, face glowing. You're not helpless. You never were. You just needed different tools. Clara watched from the doorway, heart so full it ached. 2 days later, the town held a meeting. Miss June proposed a community board to oversee water distribution with representatives from settlers and nearby Lakota families. The motion passed unanimously. Tahoma was invited to speak. Water belongs to everyone. So does medicine. If you'll let me, I'll build a clinic that serves anyone who needs it. No questions about race or money, just care. The applause was tentative, then stronger. On Tahoma's last night before leaving for the trial, Clara walked with him to Eli's farm to plant a cottonwood sapling over the grave of Eli's oldest son, who died in the warehouse raid. The tree was small, but would grow roots deep, branches wide. Eli stood beside the grave. Thank you for everything. I'm sorry it cost so much. Some things are worth the cost. He believed in what we were fighting for. Tahoma placed a carved eagle-bone whistle, his grandmother's gift, carried 20 years at the sapling's base. For courage. The night was cold, autumn's first true cold. Clara brought a wool blanket to the livery where Tahoma packed saddlebags. "You'll freeze." "I've slept in worse." Clara set the blanket on his cot, then pulled a folded paper from her apron. A letter, Herman's careful script, addressed to the Sioux reservation agent. Full confession, acknowledging falsified receipts, naming Crow offering to testify. He was going to fix it. He tried. It was too late, but he tried. Tahoma read twice, then refolded. He was weak, but not monstrous. Does that make a difference? It does to you, and it should. He made mistakes, but tried to correct them. That's more than most people do. Clara tucked the letter away. Then she sat beside Tahoma, and he draped the blanket over both their shoulders. They sat watching Cole's fade hands, resting side by side. "I'll come back," Tahoma said quietly. "After the trial, I'll come back and build the clinic. I want you to." Their fingers intertwined. Clara felt the calluses, burned scars, crooked knuckles, evidence of a life lived with purpose and pain. She traced the lines, memorizing them. "What happens now? Now we see if the well stays open, if the town keeps its word, if justice holds. And if it doesn't, then we fight again, but not alone, never alone." Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. Tahoma's arm came around her, holding close, but not possessive, just present. They sat as night deepened, two people who'd survived hell by refusing to break. And in the quiet, they found peace. 1 week later, Clara received a telegram: trial concluded. Crow guilty all counts. 20 years hard labor. Pike 5 years. Restitution ordered. Tahoma acquitted fully. Returning soon. Clara read it 3 times, then showed Margaret. The girl whooped with joy. That afternoon, a rider appeared. Clara shaded her eyes, watching. She knew that silhouette, broad shoulders, steady posture, 2 horses. Tahoma rode into Wildflower as the sun set, painting the sky gold and crimson. He dismounted at Vogel House. Clara walked down to meet him. The well's still open. To everyone. "Then I'm staying, if you'll have me." "I already said yes." "Say it again." Clara smiled. "Yes." Margaret burst out, throwing her good arm around him. "You came back." "I told you I would." "Are you staying forever?" "I'm staying as long as I'm needed." "Then you're staying forever." That evening, the 3 sat on the porch, watching stars appear. Tahoma and Clara's hands rested on the railing, fingers intertwined. Margaret leaned against her mother's shoulder, half asleep. "What do we do now?" Clara asked. "Now we live. We build the clinic. We take care of people who need us. We teach Margaret to be strong, not in spite of her arm, but because of who she is. And us," Tahoma looked at her dark eyes steady. "Us, we take one day at a time. No promises I can't keep. No vows I don't mean. Just this. Presence, partnership, truth. That's enough. That's everything." They sat as night settled over Wildflower. The well flowed freely. The clinic's foundation was laid. The future stretched ahead, uncertain, but no longer hopeless. Because sometimes in the harshest frontier, the most radical act was choosing to trust. To stay. To love not in grand gestures, but in small daily commitments. A hand offered a wound. Tended, a promise kept. And in the space between fear and faith, Clara Vogel and Tahoma of the Lakota Nation found something neither had believed possible: a home. Not in land or walls, but in each other. The wind carried sage and dust. Somewhere in the hills a coyote called. The stars wheeled overhead in their ancient patterns, indifferent and eternal. And in Wildflower, life went on.